Hi there, everybody. This is John Drew here from Elevated Planet, and I am here today with my good friend Chris Stiles, Human Futurist. How are you doing, Chris?
Hello, John. Great, thank you, and lovely to be back chatting with you.
Yes. No, I always love our little adventures and rambles through the work that you're doing, Chris. I always find it fascinating, and it's been so helpful both to myself and to Jolie and to Elevated Planet with the guidance that you've given us. And the human futurology thing is something that really, and the intelligent mathematical blueprints, it just kind of is quite mind-blowing when you think of the mathematical sequences are governing the way that things are playing out for us. And it helps to give us the heads up on what could be coming, whether it's something to be aware of, like from a more challenging point of view, or something that says put your foot on the accelerator because the everything's lining up for you. So with that said, Chris, will you tell our Elevated Planet audience a little bit about yourself?
Yes, John, of course. Um, well, first and foremost, and before I'm pelted with rotten fruit, I am scientifically trained. So
Yes.
that was my background. My background was scientific training. I followed in the footsteps of my father, who was a mathematician and a physicist. I went off to university. I did a BSc, an honors, a master's, started a PhD, and then halfway through lost interest because I realized this was not really what I wanted to do. So, on the back of that, John, suffice to say, I was very molded in terms of logical thinking. Therefore, I lived in my head, I lived in my mind.
Yes.
Enter life.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, experiences begin to happen that I'm unable to make sense of. Very, very emotional experiences, life-changing experiences, experiences that I had absolutely no control over.
Yeah.
Of course, you use the conventional routes. You seek psychological help. And yes, they help you process the emotions. But the thing is, John, when my father was honing me, and I'm so grateful for the father I had, when he was honing me into what he called a critical and a strategic thinker, he always used to say to me, he called me Christy. He used to say to me, Christy, my boy, all you need to do is ask one question, why?
Mhm.
That will give you an answer. When you get that answer, you ask the same question again, why? And you carry on and you carry on and you carry on until you have literally exhausted every bit of potential inside of you in terms of seeking the truth. And the very interesting thing, John, is that my dad said by doing that, you unleash the genius within you and you become a strategic thinker because you are in the process of discovering.
Mhm.
So, what he did, John, is he taught me a very simple way to discover. And the thing is, John, when I was working through these moments in my life, these watershed moments in my life that had really hit me on the heart level. Now, notice how there's suddenly the shift from the head into the heart.
Yes.
The more I tried to solve these heart related problems in the head, the less I was able to do this because I just kept on getting this confused answer. So, as long as you stay within the realm of what is known, as long as you remain within the conditioned state and place that the world has placed you in, and that you have been the state that you are in as a result of your schooling, your university education, no problem whatsoever. You stay in the head, you're safe. Everything is okay. The moment I moved out of my head into my heart, I could not find answers. And more importantly, John, I started to become very scared.
Yeah.
I became really, really fearful because now I've moved out of my comfort zone into my zone of complete confusion. So, what does that tell you? Well, it's very simple. If you look at the ancient teachings, if you look at the wise ones, they will always be talking about a state of praxis, that nothing is more powerful than when a human is in a state of praxis. So, what is praxis? It's a fancy word for being aligned. What is being aligned? It means your head and your heart are one, as above, so below. So, here I am, John, basically already as a middle-aged man, experiencing complete chaos because I'm looking at the teachings of the wise ones and I'm saying, hold on a moment, this exists within the spiritual literature. And of course, I'm devouring this material because I'm on this journey for self-development and self-improvement. Yet, as I'm devouring the material, I'm devouring the material in my mind. I'm processing it and I'm boxing it and I'm turning it into the equivalent of a PhD thesis. There we go, the safe zone. Yet, the moment I try to integrate this into my heart, there's serious chaos.
Mm.
What that revealed to me is that I had absolutely no idea what was going on outside of the realm of pure logic.
Right.
And that shattered my reality, John. It shattered my reality because now I started to think, what is out there that I do not understand? And that is what triggered this journey to try to understand so much more about myself. And John, let me stress up front, this journey that I've been on, the mathematical modeling, the discovery, the intelligent mathematical blueprint, the way I've been able to combine mathematics with our unique information in ways that reveals your beautiful, bespoke, intelligent mathematical blueprint. None of this is on the back of me trying to be something special or the wise man of the village or anything like this. It was on the back of me trying to understand and make sense of pain points in my life that had created such deep devastation, John, that not even a lot of psychological help could help.
Mm.
I'm talking about divorce,
Yeah.
etc., etc. And these are scars in our lives. Literally, they leave wounds that are like a great white shark attack. And whilst we can processing them logically, we hardly ever really get down to processing them spiritually.
Mm.
Remember, the psychology will help with the emotional processing, but what about the spiritual processing? And that, until you've sorted something spiritually, John, you're still not in the game, because we are moving into a new world, this new world that we are racing into right now, hence the chaos and the confusion and people losing their minds, is a world where IQ, which used to drive everything, is now taking a backseat massively.
Yeah.
EQ, which became the new IQ in the 80s and the 90s and completely revolutionized the business place. And in order to be a top executive, you had to have EQ and all of that, is now taking a back seat. And what is coming through? What is coming through is the third dimension, SQ, spiritual quotient. So there you go, John. And this it is dabbling in the spiritual quotient, having no understanding what I was doing, blindly fumbling my way through it, having aha moments, spending years and years and years and tens of thousands of hours to finally build something which I believe is starting to contribute to us being able to unpack the deeper spiritual intelligence, firstly around ourselves, then around what is going on, and therefore start to become far more complete human beings.
Mm. Yeah, and I do find that I have parallels myself with the fact that for me I was a complete left brainer, you know, steeped in the world of finance and working in sort of like major corporate, international, multinational corporates and all this kind of thing, through the world of finance and banking, and I did that for 40 odd years. So I was very left brain, and so I needed an epiphany myself to begin my journey into working out, well, what's the nature of consciousness and the human experience really all about? Because I realized that actually we don't die. That's the first thing I realized. Because yes, we can lose the physical avatar, right? And then we go back over the other side, but there's still all my, and that was the aha moment for me, was a reading. I didn't believe this stuff, but I had to find out because, my daughter had a reading and come back with all sorts of messages for me, which was so meaningful that it could have only come from the other side. So that began my journey as a left brainer. But to your point, I think there's an advantage in being left brainer, looking at an area which is very typically right brain, right? Because I do believe that the feminine energies out there are more aligned, heart aligned with this kind of spiritual world. But when, as a left brainer, when you approach it, you do approach it more scientifically. You need to understand, not just hear it and believe it, but you need to ask the question, why, right? The big question. And it just builds up and it builds up. And I've always been a big fan of yours from very well over these last few years, ever since I had my intelligent mathematical blueprint reading with you a few years ago, because it just so aligned with my life. And you suddenly realize, yeah, there is something to this. It's so multi-layered. It's so multi-layered. And of course you have that gift, if you like, from an Asperger's perspective, to have absolute focus, tunnel vision on what you've done, which is why you create what you create. So I think it's fantastic.
Well, thank you, John. And yes, it is opening up a new dimension. And the fascinating thing, John, is as I have been going through this journey. Remember, initially, John, I started building my blueprint, and it took me over a year to be able to crack that into a dimension where it started to make sense. Obviously, this is the advantage of being scientifically trained and having had the father I had, is that until I am able to replicate something with fantastic accuracy, I don't believe I've cracked the nut. So I was struggling and struggling and struggling and struggling, and then I'd find something and integrate it, and then the picture would get better, but it was still fuzzy, until finally the picture cracked and I was able to map it into a completely different dimension, and the lights went on. And I'll never forget that moment, John, because I actually sat there and I thought to myself, what have I just done?
Mm.
It really was one of those very sobering moments, because I thought, hold on a moment, I have just cracked something here that is so big, so profound, because I could literally see my entire life journey presented to me through numbers, patterns, codes, and sequences.
Mm.
I could see my divorce.
Mm.
I could see the birth of my child, my first child. I
Mm.
could see my university degrees. I could see how my university degrees lined up with the same mathematical sequences. I could see chaos in my life. And because I had trained scientifically as an ecologist and a wildlife biologist, and because of the love that I have of science, and that, immediately what came through was the message from Einstein, where he says, if you want to understand so much more about life, look deep into nature.
Mm.
And there it was. And I suddenly thought, hold on a moment. What I am looking at here is my intelligent mathematical blueprint, which is this master plan for my life, which immediately begs the question, how much free will do you have inside of that? And that is something I'm still exploring, John. It's not like I know it all, believe you me. I mean, other people might think, oh my goodness me, this guy is talking about something that's so far in the future. You must understand, John, in terms of what I know, I still think of myself as being in baby shoes.
Oh, for sure. And, I
Okay.
think, yeah, absolutely. I think we all, one of the things you do learn as you dig deep into this, and I've been doing this now for, not as long as you, not even 8 years yet, but it's kind of the thing that you learn is that you'll never, ever stop learning. Never.
John, that is exactly it. And the thing is, all of a sudden I realized when I looked at my life, John, I saw seasonality. And I thought to myself, hold on a moment. The shape of my life on a sample size of 1 is starting to mirror what I'm seeing out in nature, what I saw as a biologist, what I saw as an ecologist, the changing seasons, the changing dynamics, the highs and the lows, etc. I thought, wow, this is incredible. So that led me to start researching many people's mathematical blueprints. And that took me down a rabbit hole, John, where I built thousands, as you know,
Yeah.
in order to refine the model and develop my understanding. Then I got to a point where I thought, hold on a moment. I need to understand so much more because I'm still working with below, right? I'm still working on the human level. So now I started to try to pack information together where, for example, I would take the intelligent blueprint of families and I would lock them together. So if you had a family of 8 members and I locked 8 blueprints together, what did I see? Oh my goodness gracious me. All of a sudden, my mind was just blown because now I can see collective events affecting everybody in the entire family. So now you've gone from the fact that you've got a mathematical organization around 1, you, me, to the fact that there's a mathematical organization around a family. Now, John, this is where it starts to become quite problematic in terms of processing and power and doing it all on your own, which is what I have been doing for so long. But I then started to think, wait a moment, I'm still working down here. I've just discovered this incredible thing about family, which has now blown my research into a completely new dimension. But what about above, as above? And suddenly I thought to myself, well, Chris, you've decided to go down this road of the esoteric. Everybody laughs at you. They think that you're a nut job. That's perfectly fine. You know, what about starting to look at the heavens? And so I began a journey whereby I started to develop an interest in astrology. What is happening with the heavens? So I found a couple of really fantastic astrologers and I began to listen to their messages, what they were saying. Instead of just choosing one, I chose many because then you look for common threads,
Yes.
collective wisdom that is aligning. What did I suddenly start to see? The stuff that they were talking about up in the heavens, Mars and Jupiter and this and this trining with that and this sextiling with that and all of that. I mean, in the beginning, it's like, what on earth is going on?
Yeah.
I suddenly thought, hold on a moment. Hold on a moment. What these people are talking about up in the heavens is actually mirroring itself down here on earth.
Yeah.
And that was, John, that was just purely because I was open to it. Remember, John, when I was still, in the world of financial services and banking and working as a C-suite executive, I would have laughed this rubbish right out of the boardroom. In fact, I would have sat back in my chair and I would have said, please, can you just get this trash out of my life, out of my space, because I've got spreadsheets and I've got numbers to crunch.
Yeah.
Suddenly, but because I actually got a ladder and got over myself and got out of my ego and got out of my head and started to try to integrate my heart, right?
Yeah.
As above, so below on a personal level. Suddenly, because of that integration, as painful as it was, and still is on many levels because it's a journey, I suddenly started to realize what's happening in the heavens is mirroring itself down here on earth. Well, John, lo and behold, and I think these are some of the discussions that you and I have been having lately. I mean, what is going on in the heavens right now, if you listen to what astrologers are telling us, is absolute chaos. We are experiencing a heavenly reset.
Yeah.
Some of the astrologers are saying that what is happening in the heavens has not happened in the last 14,000 years.
Yeah.
Some of the astrologers are saying that what is happening right now has not happened for the last 50 years. Let's extrapolate that. If there is a great reset happening in the heavens, John, it must mean, as above, so below, that there is a great reset happening here on earth.
Mm, mm.
It's just that we're not prepared to think about that because, of course, if you do go down that road as a C-suite executive, you run the risk of destroying your entire career.
Yes.
Because everybody around you will look and say, that's it. Chris has lost his mind. He was an asset to this team. He was great because he conformed, because he towed the line. Now,
Mm.
all of a sudden, he's become a complete whack job. He's talking about this. He's talking about spirit. He's talking about the heavens. Let's get him out of here. Let's get him out of here because this is not how business works. Well, let me tell you, John, as this interview is being watched by the people that are watching it, we are going to see business as it is, which is the outdated model here on Earth, experiencing a catastrophic collapse.
Mm. Mm.
And as business on here on Earth and the business models and financial services and everything that we have lauded to be the way experiences this catastrophic collapse, a new way of doing things is going to have to emerge. And this is going to have the spiritual dimension built into it.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
And John, this is where one of the biggest mental meltdowns in the history of humanity is coming, especially, if I may say so, for middle-aged men who still find themselves in these C-suite roles, because everything that they have believed to be true is going to start to crumble. It's going to become a lie. And then they are going to be presented with a moment where it is adapt or die.
Yeah.
It really is. It is adapt or die. But John, this is why we're experiencing so much chaos here on Earth, because the chaos is happening up in the heavens. Now, I challenge anybody out there, John. I challenge any CEO of a Fortune 500 company to show me their company's strategic plan and to show me evidence in their company's strategic plan of the integration of heavenly intelligence. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Therefore, John, the CEOs and the strategic planning teams of every major company out there are actually already past their sell-by date. They need to have a complete overhaul. Their entire risk management strategy, their risk mitigation strategies, everything needs to start to change, and they need to start to study the heavens in order to understand what the heavens are revealing on a big picture
Mm-hmm.
and how this will affect things down here on Earth. And then you're starting to integrate. So I openly challenge, and John, I hope with all my heart that this interview between you and I somehow finds itself to some of these people.
Yeah. Yes. And maybe it takes the real evidence of that breakdown for people to truly take it seriously. But I mean, it is a fascinating time. And there was something that you said to me a couple of days ago, and you asked me about the planets. How many planets in our solar system, for instance, right?
Yes. Yes, John.
And I said, well, there are 8 major ones, and then there's some dwarf planets. And you came back and you said, yeah, that's right. And there's 13 planets in total, which is right. 5 dwarf planets and 8, which is kind of the number 13. Okay, so 13 is interesting. But what also, caught my attention on that as well is the 5 and the 8. Okay, Fibonacci sequence, right? Both part of the Fibonacci sequence going 5 to 8 to
Wow.
13.
Wow. Geez, I didn't spot that. Oh, John, ace to you.
but again, coming back into nature, right? That's kind of part of everything in nature. It follows that Fibonacci sequence, and it follows the spiral, and and then I started looking at that number 13 because that was the key thing. And I want to just focus on that for a moment because I was interested, because that really, really, again, it's the, Jesus and the 12 apostle 13, it's kind of, King Arthur and the 12 Knights of the Round Table. And one of the things that really interested me in that, because that's something I've been exploring a lot recently, if you can, going back to those ancient legends that were reality. But the 12 Knights of the Round Table, for instance, and King Arthur, each represented one aspect of the zodiac signs, right? each one born within that zodiac sign. The table itself had the insignias of the zodiac signs within it. So they would each sit there. Furthermore, they had 13 wives who were equal partners in any decisions that were made, because it was they understood the necessity of the yin and the yang, getting the balance of feminine and masculine energy, right? And then throw Merlin in the mix as well as kind of like the overseer, who was initially from galactic roots as well. I mean, it sounds fantastical, and but since we're on that fantastical journey, and then I just looked around at other evidence as well of that 13 number being the magical number that is it kind of represents spiritual unity. That's the way I see it, right? So anyway, tell me what brought you to the 13 number? What took you in that direction?
Well, firstly, John, I love that you have actually just brought something into my orbit that I'd missed, the 5 and the 8 as being Fibonacci. I mean, that just tickled me pink because, that means your mind is wide open. John, this this love and this passion that I have for numbers,
Mm-hmm.
it's just because I love them. Because I love numbers, they speak to me.
Mm.
You see, I don't see numbers as flat, dead entities that are balance sheet or ROI driven or telling you about the profit and loss of a business or whatever. I see them as something that are carrying a deeper cosmic narrative. And that narrative has been lost, and therefore we are living a dumbed down existence on a numerical and a mathematical level.
Yeah.
Therefore, we are living a dumbed down life. End of.
Yeah.
Right. So when you start to get to that, when you start to turn numbers into living narratives,
Mm.
now your mind starts to go open. Gosh, John, can you just imagine chartered accountants watching this video? Wow. Well, you know what? This is how change begins.
Mm-hmm.
This is how change begins. John, you were in the world of finance. I was in the world of finance. We would have booted this rubbish out. And I guarantee you this is going to find its way to CAs. I guarantee you it. I just know it. I feel it in my bones. Anyway, John, look at what we have been sold around the number 13. It is an unlucky number,
Yeah.
right? Look at airlines. There's
Mm.
no 13th row.
Mm.
Right. So we have been sold on every single level the fact that the number 13 is unlucky. Why? Remember, let's do what Dad always used to say to me. Ask why, Christy. Ask
Yes.
why. Why? Because the number 13 is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Because the number 13 is the number of the divine feminine.
Mm-hmm.
Because the number 13 is the number of transformation. Now, why are we being sold by the organization of this world that the number 13 is unlucky when in actual fact it is everything but?
Mm.
Ah, oh, now we're starting to open up a real can of worms here because now we're dealing with mind control. Now we're dealing with paradigms and beliefs.
Mm.
You see, if you get all people around the world to think that the number 13 is toxic,
Yes.
then you keep the power of the number 13 to yourself.
Yeah. For sure. No, I know.
Ah,
I definitely see that.
right. So now why? And here we can just go down this mine shaft. I mean, there's no need to go down there, but this is what I'm encouraging people that are watching this interview between you and I to start doing. Why? And all of a sudden, the layers of the onion just begin to peel away. And what you're left with is you're left with something that seems to be very sinister
Mm.
in terms of knowledge is sacred. John, there is sacred knowledge. It sits within sacred geometry, which is the world that I've moved myself into. It sits within gematria, which is the world that I have moved into. But this sacred knowledge is so powerful, so enlightening, so mind blowing that I genuinely believe it is sacrosanct to the few, and they want to keep control of it because that is how they are generating tremendous abundance for themselves, but not for the many. So
Yeah.
it is the cosmic, the greater cosmic wisdom being used by the few and being kept from the many through schooling systems, education systems, paradigms, beliefs, and lies like the number 13 being unlucky that then condition us into poverty as opposed to riches. And I'm talking in the mind and in the heart.
Yeah.
But to come back to your number 13, John, if you think about the 13, so we actually live in a matrix, John. We live in a
Yeah.
mathematical matrix. Now, the biggest mistake that people make, and once again, this is the ego. People think they create stuff. They don't, John.
Hmm.
We don't create a single thing. It is already there.
Hmm.
We do not create anything. Everything that we think we create exists because we have discovered it.
Yeah.
We don't create anything. We don't create maths, John. We discover maths.
Hmm. Hmm.
Maths is all there.
Yeah.
So we don't create language. We discover language. What does this suddenly mean? It means that if you go, if you just allow yourself to think of this incredible space that we're living in, this living, breathing, intelligent, expanding universe,
Hmm.
right? It means it's all there. Therefore, English always existed. It just had to be discovered. Now, the thing is, if everything already existed and only need to be discovered, suddenly you break down the entire ego of man. I created this. I am the great one. I did this. I am the great one. And when the moment the ego of man collapses and everything was there, we realize we create nothing, we discover everything. What
Hmm.
does that mean? It means that in turn, everything that is that we know right now and everything that exists that we still need to discover obviously also has its origin in mathematics. Why? Because mathematics is the language of the universe.
Hmm.
Therefore, English is somehow linked with mathematics.
Hmm.
The languages are linked with mathematics. Our lives are linked with mathematics. The days of the week are linked with mathematics. I guarantee you, John, the moment people start to open up their minds, they will begin to realize that even the names of the days of the week, if you trace them, go all the way back to the celestial bodies.
Hmm.
Monday,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Monday, right? If you take that into Afrikaans, one of the languages of South Africa, the country where I was born, it's called Maandag.
Hmm.
Maan in Afrikaans is moon.
Hmm.
Monday is moon day.
Right.
Monday is linked with one of the heavenly bodies.
Yeah.
But of course, John, when you start doing this, it blows people's minds because they think, oh no, hold on a moment, this just can't be, this just can't be. And John, I really believe that so much of the global chaos that we are going through right now, to come back to the very question you posed around the number 13, is because the number 13 that has been hidden,
Hmm.
that has been used and leveraged for power, for gain, for control, for transformation, for enrichment, for all of these things, but used by the few, is now coming to the fore for the many. Therefore, this divine masculine, so I beg your pardon, the divine feminine, which is the number
Hmm.
13, is replacing the divine, is replacing the masculine, which has been in power and control for so long.
Hmm.
Now, John, you think about anything. You think about this world as above, so below. So let's just come back into the earthly realm, right? Let's
Hmm.
ground this conversation. When you think about takeovers, whether it be a buyout, whether it be a merger and an acquisition within business, etc., are these happy events? No, not at all. You know, Of course, there will be the usual rhetoric around the fact that, oh, we're really going to make this a seamless event. But there's always blood. It's always quite a
Yeah.
bloodbath, if we really have to be honest. Whenever there's a company takeover or a change in executive or whatever it is, there's a period of extreme chaos.
Hmm.
What we are experiencing right now, John, is the chaos whereby this masculine, which has now become toxic because of the ego,
Hmm.
is is frantically clinging on to power,
Hmm.
and the divine feminine is emerging and cannot be stopped. And so you have got this war that is taking place between the one, the masculine, the two, the feminine, with the one frantically holding on to power, the archaic structures that
Yeah.
govern this world,
Yeah.
that cling on to power, the two, which is coming through the divine feminine, which is a far more ecological world where what is good for many as opposed to what is good for the few.
Yeah.
You think about the ancient structures, the empires that where you had a couple of really the rich, the noblemen, etc., but the rest of the world rest of the people were basically on the breadline,
Hmm. Hmm.
poverty. So you've got these huge shifts that are taking place. And this, I think, is the world realigning itself with and to the number 13. Now, how this happens, John, could be fascinating, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts on that could be.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, you know, one of the things we've been exploring in Elevator Planet in recent times is uncovering the fact that there is a lot of hidden wisdom and knowledge that has been, as you say, some of it has been taken by the few and used against the many. And there are many ways in which we have been dumbed down, and part of it is religion. Okay. So, religion and the distortion within the King James Bible in particular, which kind of gives the big roles to the masculine. There's an example of this actually, and it comes back to this number 13 as well to a degree. Jesus and the 12 disciples, right? All men, right? Jesus had, apparently, I've got a book over in that direction over there that from the 1960s that really explores this and goes into the documentary side of this as well. Jesus and the Lost Disciples, and it's and Dolores Cannon did some work on this as when she was doing her They Walked with Jesus. What they discovered is that there were actually 144 disciples. There were 72 women and 72 men.
Wow.
And it came down from Jesus was the vine, the 12 were the branches. But when you think about this, maybe it was 6 and 6 because you've got the 6, creating the 12, which creates the 13, okay, Jesus and the 12. But then each of those 12 has another 12 that comes from them. So because they become the vine, and then there's branches of the 12. Say Mary Magdalene had 12 sort of disciples, female disciples that followed her teachings. But it's really interesting because it just shows the level of distortion out there. And yet, once you start to look in unconventional ways at this, you start to break it down. And we know from the Nag Hammadi texts the level of distortion, because the idea of prayer, right, that was completely distorted, because ask and you shall be given, whereas asking puts you in want, which says that I am increasing the want. If we're wanting something, we're asking to want something, rather
Absolutely.
than the true version, as per the Nag Hammadi texts, said, you had to live as if it was a wish fulfilled, as Neville Goddard said, right? Live your life as if a wish fulfilled. What it is you want, you have to use your fourth dimensional imagination, which imagination creates your reality. And you have to understand these things to realize how powerful we are. And everything has been designed to keep us from our power. This is the era where we come into our power, but it's heart-based unity consciousness. So to your point, Chris, yeah, absolutely. Mind-heart coherence is absolute in getting us to that next level. But heart-based is that the heart, I believe, is our window to the entire universe. As above, so below, and everything exists within us. So it's not outside of ourselves we have to look. It's inside of ourselves. It's coming within. And then And again, one of the other things that you've taught me over the years is that you have the real positive side, but we also have our shadow side. Everything's a balance, right? And you can't have one without the other. So you have to integrate the two. You know, what you resist persists. So if you try to pretend the shadow side doesn't exist, you're actually bringing it more to you. I mean, I say all this, but I mean, what do you think?
John, look, you and I are on completely the same page.
Mm-hmm.
We are on completely the same journey. I think the thing for me when I look at this is this, and just to come back to this number 13, when you ask people out there, have you heard of the 12 Hermetic principles or laws? They
Mm-hmm.
look at you as if you've fallen from outer space. Now, you cannot even begin your journey of awareness or awakening if you haven't even heard of the 12 Hermetic laws or principles. Right now, as you have been so fantastically teaching through your channel, Elevated Planet, we are shifting from the third dimension, which is this really dumbed down dimension, John, where
Yes.
the masculine energy is still very, very, very much in control and in charge. And I'm going to come back to that, into this fifth dimension.
Mm,
Now, the really interesting thing is, if you actually go and look at the 12 Hermetic laws,
mm,
basically, and I've actually I'm going to just turn to a couple of little notes that I
mm-hmm.
made probably about 2 o'clock this morning because I'm in a mode now where literally I hardly sleep. The first law is the law of materialism.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's just one axis. It's a
Mm-hmm.
line. There's
Mm-hmm.
the x-axis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Enter the second law, the law of polarity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There comes the y-axis. Do you see how even these laws are driven by mathematics? Right?
Yes.
Now we move to the third dimension, the
Mm-hmm.
law of gender.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the law of polarity is also known as duality, which
Yes.
is what so many of these life coaches have been teaching for so long. I mean, it's so outdated. You know, left, right, up, bottom, love, hate, etc., 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 rich, poor, blah, blah, and adapt your thinking in that dimension. I mean, that is so far past its sell by date. But anyway, there's no need to go there. Then we go to the third dimension, the law of gender.
Mm-hmm.
In comes the Z axis.
Mm-hmm.
Just think about this mathematically. There it is. This whole thing is beginning to develop. And there it is. And these 12 Hermetic principles have been around forever, yet most people have never heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
Then you enter the fourth dimension, basically the fourth law, the law of vibration. Now, the law of vibration is where people is the major law. When you take the law of vibration and you turn it into a sales pitch,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
what do you get? You get the law of attraction.
Yes.
Did you notice that's why I laughed? When you take the law of vibration and turn it into a sales pitch, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, pregnant pause, you get the law of attraction. And hasn't that just fueled a multi-billion dollar industry for a very long time? I leave it there. Now we are moving into the fifth dimension. The fifth dimension, the fifth law in the 12 Hermetic principles is the law of rhythm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now you're talking about congruence. And guess what defines the fifth dimension, John? And when you said this earlier, I nearly fell off my chair. The Fibonacci sequence.
Right. Yes.
There's the 8 and the 5. So now, John, we know that we are moving into a new dimension, a new energetic construct, which is 5D, which is Fibonacci driven,
Mm-hmm.
right? That has to bring the number 13 into play because 13 exists within the Fibonacci sequence,
Yeah.
right? So now we've got this being powered. So now we say, right, hold on a moment. What is going on out there? 13 is the number of the divine feminine. The divine feminine is coming through, John. There's no stopping it.
Hmm.
There is no stopping it. The leaders of this world, the powers of this world, they can try what as much as they will. There is no stopping this. It is coming through. So we've just got to deal with this chaos. What is the number that is going to facilitate this divine feminine coming through beautifully and perfectly? It's going to be the number 13,
Hmm.
because the number 13 is already the number that drives the greater construct of the matrix of which we are part. Jesus and the 12 disciples, as you went on, etc., etc., etc. Are you with me?
Hmm.
This,
Hmm.
this greater consciousness.
Hmm.
Okay. Also, if you think about Christ consciousness, it links back to the master number 33. If you take the master number 33 and you just split them apart, you've got two threes,
Yeah.
right? So, and what gives the construct of 3? 12. 1 and 2 is 3. So wherever you see 12, you know that you are dealing with creation. You know that you are dealing with discovery. And then you add the one extra number in, and there you've got the complete picture, the picture that has been hidden. So all of a sudden, we look at the chaos that is going on with Donald Trump saying, that's it. I want Greenland. I want this. I want that. I want this. I want that. People are losing their minds over this. Why? Because we are still in the old way of thinking, whereby this is my country, this is my border, this is my flag. Makes me think of Eddie Izzard, where in one of his comedies, he talks about, he says, do you have a flag? If no flag, no country, or whatever. And he's basically saying, well,
Yeah.
therefore, you don't have a flag. I'm going to take your country. I'm going to take it mine, and I'm going to subjugate you. So look at how this. I mean, are we actually not seeing? If we just move beyond Trump and all the theatrics that's going on at the moment, okay, let's just
Mm.
basically put that as the world's most gripping series, you know, tons of popcorn being sold every single day as people sit and devour this. It's a cliffhanger with Trump as the lead actor. If we basically move beyond all of this, are we not seeing the world starting to be reorganized into a construct of 13?
Right.
And that from this construct of 13, the divine feminine will be born, the divine feminine will emerge.
Yeah.
But what we've also got to remember, John, is that before this enlightenment, what do they always say? It always gets darkest before dawn.
Yeah.
Before this divine feminine comes through, on the back of, and remember, John, I'm just purely postulating here. I'm giving you a different mathematical construct to consider. I don't know whether I'm right or wrong,
Hmm.
but I'm looking at the construct, because remember, John, everything is always delivered through something. There's always a framework. So when these spiritualists and that are talking about a new world, a new this and that, they speaking about the end game, but how is it going to be delivered?
Hmm.
And this is where we take all of the spiritual knowledge and we bring it back down to earth. It has to be delivered through a certain structure, through certain channels. Now, that means those channels have got to be put in place.
Hmm.
Putting those channels in place initially might serve, if you will, the old guard very well. But I think this will only be for a short period of time. So, are we actually, John, in the process of seeing the world, the chaos, the war,
Hmm.
the wars, the
Hmm.
pending wars, the fear, the terror, etc.? Is this because actually the grand plan of the 13 is in the process of unfolding here on earth? The 13 in the heavens, the planets,
Hmm.
is realigning itself down here on earth in order to mirror, as above, so below, the construct through 13, which will be 1 and 12,
Hmm. Hmm.
that will then allow the divine feminine to come through. Therefore, there's the platform, there's the structure, there are the channels. But before the divine feminine arrives, you have, if you will, the final surge of true toxic masculinity.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that, I think, would coincide with very, very, very dark times.
Yes, and I very much agree. I think that the likes of Donald Trump is here to kind of represent old Earth energy and to break down the old systems. The egoic, top-down control, masculine energy. Bullying, narcissistic, and all this kind of thing. He's kind of like the avatar of that particular set of energies. And sometimes you have to know what you don't want to know what you do want. So therefore, we're having this conference, and there's a lot of darker energies out there that I think honestly, he's here for a purpose, a real purpose. He's here to break things, but he's not here to build things. Break it apart, create the chaos, because and I saw a really interesting example of this, and this comes back to a lady called Saratoga Ocean, and she channels Archangel Michael, okay, and came out with this really beautiful example, and I'll put it up on the screen here. But what it showed is that there's a nexus point, okay. So
Yep.
what happens is that it's like a funnel like this, and
Yep.
at the moment when you're at the wider part of the funnel, you've got more space. But as you get closer to that nexus point, it's like you're jamming all these energies together. So it gets more and more chaotic, chaotic, chaotic. It gets to the nexus point, call it a portal, call it
Yes.
a point of singularity.
Yes.
Then you burst out the other side into expansion, right? Into the age of Aquarius, into that, and there's something we talked about just the week before last, actually, was the return of Isis, because it had been predicted that Isis, the goddess Isis, comes back to Earth by 2050 with all her acolytes from ages past, who are the high priests and priestesses, who open up all the information which has been hidden. And it still exists, but it hasn't been interpreted because they can't interpret it. And thankfully,
Wow.
they can't interpret it, because if you're doing it from a low vibrational perspective, from that, law of vibration, right? When you're there at a low frequency, that third dimensional frequency and below, then you can weaponize this information. So that information is only made available once we're through that nexus point, once we're through to a higher vibrational point of living, and therefore it is used, as you say, for the feminine energy, the collaborative energy, where we are helping the good for the good of the many, as opposed to the good of the one. So I think the Trump thing is fascinating, because he's here for a very specific purpose: to break things apart, to challenge and break apart the systems that are not here to serve us, right? We're being dumbed down for thousands upon years, effectively a slave race, feeding those at the top end, and 13 bloodlines, okay?
There you
And
go.
then you've also got the 13 tribes of Israel as well, right?
Well, John, what is so interesting about the discussion that we are having is we are giving people a different perspective.
mm,
And remember, fear comes on the back of ignorance.
mm,
Right. So as the world it becomes more and more chaotic, and Trump starts to demand more and more countries to, if you will, amalgamate under the banner of America. So people become more and more and more and more fearful. Why? Because they actually do not understand.
yeah.
And if you look at what is going on out there, so much of the information right now is just absolute garbage. And AI is taking information, processing it at such an insane speed into videos and material, whatever, that actually, if you spend a couple of hours online, you come off more confused than you were when you went online.
Yeah.
But the very interesting thing, John, is if we start to see the construct of this world beginning to be shaped,
mm,
whether it be through war, whatever it might be, into super regions,
mm,
then we know that this is the beginning of this quantum change down here on Earth, in order to align it with the heavens, in order to facilitate the emergence of the divine feminine to replace the toxic masculine.
mm,
We also look at it and we say, hold on a moment, you know, and here I'm going to go, if I may, John, just into the intelligent mathematical blueprint of Donald Trump.
mm,
Trump at the moment, loathed by many, celebrated by many, one of the most divisive characters you could find on the planet. He is without a doubt the quintessential agent of chaos.
yeah.
But remember, John, I spoke about working on the individual level,
Mm,
right? When I analyze the intelligent mathematical blueprint of Donald Trump, there is a very significant event that is going to take place around him this year. It
Mm,
sits clearly, it stands out like a sore thumb in his intelligent mathematical blueprint,
mm,
right? So much so that I would be very surprised if by the end of this year he is still the president of the United States,
mm,
right? Now bring in the intelligent mathematical blueprint of J.D. Vance. There is a life changing and life shaping experience in the blueprint of Vance this year. What does that mean? Remember, John, I build these blueprints. That's why I call them intelligent, in order to foster stimulating conversation around scenarios.
mm,
That's why I call myself the human futurist. I take human-based intelligence, I put it into a framework in order to foster creative discussion, intelligent discussion, strategic thinking around what scenarios could be,
mm,
except not on a technology level by most, like most futurists do, but on a human level,
mm.
right? That's hence my title, if you will, the human futurist.
Yeah.
But we look at all of this. So, John, if Trump is actually this agent of chaos, yet he is potentially an enabler
Yes.
of this divine feminine coming through,
Yeah.
what happens? Again, it's just purely a question. Questions open the mind. What happens if and when Trump is removed?
Mm,
Does that coincide with us potentially moving into one of the very, very darkest periods ever, whereby this toxic masculinity then clings on for dear life
mm.
and literally energetically goes to war with the divine feminine?
Yeah.
Now timelines start to come in,
Mm.
right? And we look, John, nobody really knows.
No.
Remember, nobody knows. I mean, I'm always amazed when I see people touting themselves as, the new Nostradamus or whatever. It just blows my mind. Here are these spiritualists, yet they're calling themselves the new Nostradamus. I mean, how can you call yourself the new Nostradamus and be a spiritualist? I mean, that just smacks of ego, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Look
Absolutely.
at my ego. So, there is so much also in the spiritual world that needs to be washed out in terms of ego. It's like, oh, I got the prediction right, therefore I am the wise one, I'm the clever one, I'm this, I'm that. We need to move beyond having to be right, this need to be right. And it is actually very prevalent right now in the spiritual realm, John. All
Mm.
you've got to do is just go and have a look at the YouTube channel of some of these spiritual teachers, and they're always telling you about how they got their predictions right. That is not brilliant thinking. Brilliant thinking comes from asking questions.
Mm.
That's where we should be. We should be saying, well, I got this piece of the puzzle, but there's 1,000-piece puzzle coming. How does this fit into that?
Mm.
That is for me humility as opposed to ego. So just like we've
Yeah.
still got ego rocking itself in the physical world and the business world, we've still got a lot of ego rocking itself in the spiritual world, with
Yeah.
these
Oh, for
people
sure.
taking on these titles and these mantles in order to be so important so they can sell more books or whatever. Anyway, I digress. One of the important things here, John, is for people to open their minds and say, as they see this world being shaped in ways that create fear and terror and doubt and shock and consternation within the lives of many,
Mm.
do not be part of the many, be the few.
Mm.
Look at this and say, hold on a moment, what is the greater architecture behind this? Because there is always something magnificent. Order comes out of chaos. What is the new order that is going to come out of this incredible chaos that we are going through right now? As above, so below. Bring it back to the basic principles that define absolutely everything. Align your head and align your heart. The moment you do that, you are in the fifth dimension.
Mm.
When your head and your heart are split and you cannot align them, you're not in that state of praxis, you stay in the 3D. In other words, all the shenanigans and all the chaos of what's going on impacts you massively. When you align your head and your heart, you're able to rise into the 5D. You're able to rise above the chaos that is going on around you. You're able to see things differently. You're able to see opportunities. You're able to see potential. You're able to see the bigger picture.
Mm.
You therefore are in a far more powerful energetic state.
Mm. Yeah.
And that makes you far more resourceful as we go through this chaos. But what is going to be very interesting, John, and it's just something that I think we all need to be mindful of, is right now, Donald Trump is driving and leading seismic change within the world.
Absolutely.
You know, one moment you've got people saying, what is he doing? Screaming at him, bad mouthing him, politicians, leaders of organizations, NATO, for example, Mark Rutte sitting there with eyes like this. 4 days later, Mark Rutte is saying, I think we need to back Trump. I think Greenland is now. So nobody really knows what's going on. They literally are just working through this narrative of chaos.
Yeah.
Or they do know what's going on and they deliberately confusing us in order to keep us dumb. But John, the biggest thing is 5D is here. It's
Mm.
already here.
Absolutely.
And the fastest way for people to embrace this new way, this new energy, this new reality that is coming in is through heart, I beg you, through head and heart convergence,
Yeah.
alignment. There
Yeah.
you are. Then you're sitting in the Fibonacci sequence and look around you for events beginning to unfold with and to the number 12 and 13. Then you're going
Mm.
to suddenly realize this is what is going on.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. And you know, the point you made earlier about the fact that we're just discovering, right? We're not creating, we're discovering what's
Yep.
already there. And that whole principle of heart brain coherence, right? Heart mind coherence is taking us up to that dimensional level to a world which is much better. You know, you don't go into fear, right? Because that's your point, right? False evidence appears real. Because that's when you're in that third dimensional mind-based polarity division, right? And this is all about division. But the reality is that we're, and this is the most amazing thing that I've discovered, is like we're all one, right? We all come from the same consciousness, and we're going back into unity consciousness. Because once you're back in unity consciousness, once you're in that heart-based coherence with the mind, then you basically wouldn't go to war with anybody because you wouldn't hurt them. You wouldn't strike somebody because it's the same as punching yourself in the face, right? That's where we're heading. We're not there. We have to go through increasing chaos to get there because people will awaken. Everybody has a time. I believe everybody has an opportunity to wake up, and many haven't. And it's not their fault because they're by the grace of God go I. Had I not had that reading 8 years ago, I'd still be doing the left brain thing, right? That's technically, I mean, maybe not, because maybe I was always supposed to go for that reading. Maybe I was supposed to wake up. Maybe this is, and I believe that is actually true. But I also honor the fact that other people, their timeline is not for another 3 years of chaos, and then the penny drops, right?
John, 100%. And I think probably one of the final pieces I'd like to try to get through is, as a trained ecologist who lived and studied wildlife and wildlife dynamics within Africa, one of the things that always fascinated me was moments of chaos. So let me give you an example of a lion pride. A
Mm-hmm.
lion pride is very settled. You've got the lionesses, you've got the cubs, and you've got the dominant male or males. Within the area are younger males that are starting to come of age. They're getting stronger. They now start to move into the territory.
Mm-hmm.
Initially you get skirmishes, right?
Yeah.
But the dominant males still beat them up and chase them away. However, these younger males become stronger and stronger and stronger, and eventually you have this clash. And you have this titanic battle, and the old males get beaten,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes even killed, but
Mm-hmm.
chased out, and now the new males come in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when the new males come in, there's a lot of chaos and a lot of uncertainty within the pride. Think about what's going on here at the
Yeah. Yeah.
moment. But, John, I want to extrapolate this into something bigger. I would love your audience to think of the old males as being the number one and the new
Mm-hmm.
males as being the number two.
Yeah.
Now, John, every person born before the year 2000 carries within their date of birth the number one,
Yeah.
right? One.
Hmm.
19, 18, whatever. But I mean, the ones that are alive now, born in the 1900s. The moment you clocked into 2000, every person born now carries the number two.
Yeah.
Do you see how that shift in energy? So one is all about me, independence, the ego, self-identity, etc., 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 right? Independence, innovation, entrepreneurship. The number two is the divine feminine.
Hmm.
Look at what is going on around the world. Look at what is going on in Iran right now. Look at the uprisings. It's the youth. It
Hmm.
is the youth which are largely driven by the number two, standing up and saying no more to, if you will, the fathers, who
Yeah.
are very much the number one and very much entrenched in the number one. Now you've got this chaos. So if you look at what is going on around the world, it's no different from looking at the takeover, if you will. Yes, I'm using this metaphorically, but the takeover of a lion pride,
Hmm.
whereby the old males who
Hmm.
actually are past their sell-by date need to be expelled in
Hmm.
order for the new males to come in. Now, the thing is, there, John, we are talking in terms of genetics. We're talking in
Yeah.
terms of bloodline, right? Here, because we are spiritual beings having a human journey, we are now talking about spiritual transition.
Hmm.
So we're talking about a new bloodline on a spiritual level, not
Hmm.
just a genetic level for diversity in terms of staying alive.
Hmm.
This is why we're seeing so much chaos right now.
Hmm.
And it's just an incredible thing to see. It's an incredible thing to see. What we are witnessing is we are witnessing the the crescendo of these numbers clashing and meeting with the old males frantically wanting to hold on to the lionesses, the young males saying no more, this dreadful fight or whatever. Everything is on the table, biting, scratching, clawing, doesn't matter, eviscerating, and then bang, the fight is over, and then there's the period of transformation, and then normality returns.
Yeah.
So there is just an African savanna example, but I use that in order to open people's minds to the one, which is historic and archaic, now giving way to the two, which is the new way.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to me. It does. And I find it so exciting. This to be here on the planet right now is an immense honor. For those caught in the density, caught in the fear, it doesn't feel that way. But actually, they chose to be here too. They have a role to play. Everybody has a role to play, and it's also interesting to think that you know there is kind of this thing whereby what is it? Yeah, there's the dark energies are needed as a natural counterbalance to the light. So in order for the light to get brighter, because everything comes back into harmony and balance, right? You have to have darker energies out there. So it's not that you hate on the dark energies because they're fulfilling an important role too, but a lot of it is about awakening humanity. I mean, what you've said, Chris, just I just love our discussions. You just open my mind to so many things.
Well, John, thank you. And the final bullet point, and I'll really make this quick. As we are going through this chaos, as it gets darker and people become more and more and more fearful, the first thing that happens is people become victims.
Mm,
Why me? Why must I experience this? Why did this happen to me? There's a share market crash. Oh my goodness, why has my wealth been wiped away? There's a property market crash. Why has this happened to me? Woe is me, woe is me, woe is me, woe is me, woe is me. The victim mentality. John, one thing, just as we were talking about the number 13 and all of this and my work around intelligent mathematical blueprints, another thing that I would love your audience to understand is that whilst this work of mine is still in its infancy, there is no doubt that I am discovering evidence which supports the notion. Remember, and I'm
mhm,
not saying the proof, the conclusive proof, the notion that you chose your journey. Why is it that your data, your unique data, can be locked into this unique, intelligent mathematical blueprint, which reveals an experiential construct over a timeline that is absolutely perfect for you? Success, failure, marriage, divorce, birth, death, etc., 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 etc. How can this be contained within numbers? How can this flow from your unique information? The only reason that can happen is because you chose this journey. And when you understand this, especially as we go into this very, very dark time, and I really do believe the darkest of times are coming upon us now, John,
Mm-hmm.
that it's so, so, so important to remember this. I chose this journey, this experience, because it helps you to move from being a victim
Mm-hmm.
into being enlightened and empowered.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. No, it's really, it's so empowering. I think here's the trick, okay? Chaos, absolutely. Really a lot of devastation going on out there, right? Understanding that we chose to be part of this and that, we have free will. There is a framework that we've chosen for ourselves, but we still have free will within that. So free will is an absolute. But these are really interesting times, and talking about timelines and various other things, you know, I think we just need to keep on exploring this. And I welcome and I would encourage anybody to drop into the comments below any thoughts and questions, whether you regard it as truth or deluded nonsense, or you have specific questions, because any questions that get posted here, if it's for Chris, I'll make sure Chris sees those and we will respond to that. Or for Elevated Planet in general, you can send me an email to johndrew@elevatedplanet.life. You can go to our free format contact box on elevatedplanet.life website. Or Chris, would you like to share credentials there?
Well, John, if people really want to find me, they'll find me on LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
Chris Styles. They'll see that I've got a little equation there, which is FFT, Futurist Fusion Thinker, and that equals IQ plus EQ plus SQ, logic plus emotion plus spirit. They can also go to the website humanfuturology.co.uk. But John, just a final thing from me, just to
Mm-hmm.
say thank you for the tireless work that you do, that Jolie does, that Elevated Planet does, in terms of bringing a new dimension of consciousness into this world that we are currently in. And the thing that I look forward to the most is when big business and the people who control big business and the senior executives within big business realize that their world is past its sell by date and that the spiritual quotient now needs to be inculcated into how they do things. Just that, John,
Mm-hmm.
will
For sure.
create a seismic shift across the entire world, not only for the companies or the businesses, but also for the employees. But John, thank you from me to you, Jolie and Elevated Planet, for everything that you do.
Thank you, Chris. I love the journey. I learn every single day, and I plan to continue that until the very final day, which I foresee is going to be a while off yet. But I just love our conversations. I think that we should keep this going, and I would encourage anybody who desires to hear more, please do again make a note in the comments below and see where this journey takes us. Right, it's getting exciting.
You know, we always say, John, this interview's going to go, this one's going to go, this one's going to go. Well, you're 25, I'm one, it's 26. This is the year, John.
Yes. I'm looking forward to it all, Chris. I'm looking forward to it all. So, okay, well, thank you, thank you, thank you to you. Thank you to Suzanne as well,
Pleasure.
Mrs. Styles, the other part of the team. And I look forward to our ongoing synergies going forward for between Elevated Planet and Human Futurology.
Fantastic, John. Thank you. Big love to you. Have a good day. Look after yourself. Love to everybody there. Bye
Thank
now.
you. Yep. Thank you, community. Take care.
Cheers.